Welcome to a special holiday edition of Diary of an Ex-Ho. I'm Cheri Hardman. I'm your ex-ho, and today's guest is my bestie, Andy Vargo. So sit back, enjoy the episode, and remember the old saying, always a bridesmaid when you're a hoe.
Yeah, I've got my my sweater, but like we said, it's like you can't see,
Oh, yeah.
and I barely fucking squeeze into this thing, by the way.
Really? This is pretty tight on me, too.
Hi, it's me, Cheri Hardman. Just here to remind you to subscribe to my channel. And every time you like or comment, that helps me out a lot. Doesn't hurt you, but also do it. Do it.
I don't need to introduce you because my intro will do that. But I'm so excited to be with you together again.
I know, this is so fun. I've missed getting on the air with you.
We used to do I don't really want to call it past tense because you never know when it's going to resurface.
I think
we
there could be, yeah.
We have a podcast called Scrutiny with Cheri and Andy.
Yeah,
And
we've just both gotten so busy with each of our own paths that it's been hard to make that a thing.
yeah, so thanks for coming on here with me today. As always, we're going to start out with a little game of Marry, Shag, Kill.
Oh, right
ready?
away. Nice.
Okay. So let me share my screen.
And Cheri, I love your festive sweater while you're I'm just gonna
I love your festive sweat.
I was fishing for a compliment, actually, so thank you.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
We kind of complimented each other off camera, but now.
Yeah.
Oh. All right.
Marry one, shag one, kill one. Oh, this game is always so much pressure.
I know. Okay, you ready?
Yep. Oh God, they're oh no. Oh God, marry, shag, kill.
Three comedian friends of ours. And don't worry, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to make you do that. There's an actual series.
Okay, because I was ready. I had it in my head. Okay.
You can tell me off camera. So we're doing a mustache edition.
A mustache edition. Okay.
So we got Tom Selleck, Milo Ventimiglia, and Geraldo Rivera.
Okay. I know who Tom Selleck and I know who Geraldo. I don't know who this Milo guy is.
He's on a show called This Is Us.
Okay. I've heard of that show.
Yeah.
I think I would shag him just because he looks pretty shaggable.
Uh-huh.
I'd probably marry Tom Selleck because he seems pretty stable, although there's probably a lot of stuff I don't know from his past. And then I'd have to kill Geraldo just because I think he's obnoxious. So that's an easy.
There we go. You know, I noticed that this happens a lot, that I put them in random order, but it almost always ends up marry, shag, kill. Isn't that funny?
That's funny. Yeah. Little subliminal thing there. That's funny how that works.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think Tom Selleck looks like that anymore.
I know.
But that is a good picture of him. I can see why he was a thing in his time.
Uh-huh. Even with those big old bushy eyebrows, he still was cute. Okay. Yeah, now he was even looking good when he was on Friends, but if you think about it, how many years ago was that?
I always confuse him and Burt Reynolds.
Oh, I almost put Burt Reynolds on here as one of them.
Like, I never remember which one was Magnum PI and which one was on the other stuff. And one of them was married to the gal on WKRP in Cincinnati. Weren't they? The long blonde hair.
Oh, I forgot about that. Lonnie Anderson.
Lonnie. I wanted to say Connie, but I know that wasn't right. Lonnie.
Yeah. All right. Random question for you before we begin.
All right.
Would you, and you know, they're all going to be dealing with sex. Would you rather watch or be watched? I know, big surprise we're talking about sex, Andy.
Okay, so I'm a little self-conscious, so I think I would rather watch than be watched.
Okay. All right.
I don't, like, there's a mirror in the room, it's bad enough. It was like, oh no, I never saw that angle before.
I know people go, do you ever do videotapes? I'm like, ew, no.
This is evidence. Oh God.
Okay, now we're gonna go back to your childhood. And first of all, like, what did your parents call your private parts?
I don't even remember because like there wasn't a lot of discussion. It was just like, down there, or, I don't
Mm,
even remember there being a lot of talk. That's the thing. It was just like my parents were pretty avoidant about things. So, um,
gotcha.
yeah.
Well, I know enough about you to know that uh, they're they're pretty religious, right?
Yeah, they're Catholic, and I think later on, like when anything came up, it was probably like the real terms, like you're either private or penis or whatever, but
Right. Um, so your parents are still together.
yes, they are. They've been together in January, it will be 65 years.
Holy crap, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Um, do you were like when you were a kid, were they physically affectionate with each other? Like did
Not
you
that I saw, like they were, it's hard, like the thing is with my parents, my dad worked two jobs a lot. They had seven kids, he was a teacher. They chose to have us go to Catholic school, so there was that expense. So
hmm,
we weren't we weren't like, oh my gosh, I never know where the next meal is going to come from, kind of poor, but we weren't rolling in it. And I feel like sometimes I felt poorer than I actually was because of where they were choosing to spend their money, or the people I was around had more money. So
mm-hmm.
um looking back, it's like we went camping every summer because my dad was a teacher and off most of the time, and we did a lot of stuff that a lot of people didn't get to do, so there were a lot of good things. But I never really saw my parents, like they didn't go on date nights, they didn't do, I never saw romance. It was very like
Uh,
the business of marriage. I would
mm-hmm.
see my grandparents, like, if you'd ask my grandpa what time it was, my granddad, he'd say, half past kissing time, time to kiss again. And then he'd sneak a
Oh,
smooch from my grandma, or they'd like sit on each other. She'd sit on his lap, or they'd always be kind of cuddled. So I'd see that more in them than in my parents. It was just
right.
so, which I didn't even really think about till recently, when you start looking at what you're going to do for a relationship, and then you think about what your ideals were formed for what a relationship should look like. And then, I had, it's no secret I didn't have the best marriage. And I look back and it's like, oh, I didn't have an example for that growing up. So I didn't, view romance as an important part of marriage. It's like, to me, romance was surrounded by dating, not a relationship.
Gotcha. Because that's what I was going to ask is did you feel like they were a good role model as for what you wanted in a partnership?
They won't watch this. So I mean, I thought at the time that it was like, it was the ideal family life.
Mm,
But as far as like for creating a family and for certain things, yes. And that's one thing I've learned, is that people aren't perfect. And so they can be a really good role model in one area. But as far as like romance and what I would expect for a relationship, not really, because I didn't see them set aside time for themselves. Like they would go out for their anniversary, once a year was their time out. It wasn't, these couples that I would see doing date nights once a month or once a week. I
mhm.
remember thinking how selfish that is, because I'm like, that's so wrong. You have kids now. You're not supposed to do that. And then looking back, I'm like, well, maybe that is actually pretty important, because your kids are going to grow up, they're going to move out. And if you haven't invested any time in your relationship,
Yeah, then you're just living with
how
a
much time would
stranger, kind of. Yeah.
yeah,
Were your parents affectionate with you, kids? Like, were they huggy and kissy?
not overly. I mean, they weren't like cold, but it was just kind of like, yeah.
Right, right. Okay, now I'm going to ask you about something that I call a sexual awakening. So,
Okay.
like a moment in time when you realized, hey, wait a minute, there's something going on in this world that I didn't previously realize was going on, whether it was something you felt in your body or you observed. Can you tell me about that?
Oh, well, I mean, I get asked this a lot about like, when did you know you were gay? And that's like the closest thing I can think about. I don't know when I first noticed like I was actually in puberty. Some people are like, oh, I remember the first time. I remember from early on, like like kindergarten or really young, just having a different attraction to guys, like just this yearning to like at that time, I don't think it was sexual. I think it was just like you're attracted to that energy, I guess. And then when
Mm-hmm.
I got to middle school, I remember being like, nope, I'm excited about these guys in my class. Or, back when I was a kid, when I was in middle school, the Soloflex commercials were on a lot. For, for you young folks, that was like, the home gym of the day.
Yeah.
But there was this one guy in particular that was the main Soloflex guy, and it's like he would be on there. And I remember something happened, like a Soloflex like catalog showed up at the house, and that was like a
Oh,
Playgirl or Playboy to me, and it was just like, I remember like it was in my bedroom and I was like, oh my God, someone's gonna see this. I didn't even think that they're gonna even think about the way I view it. But anyway,
uh,
I mean, I definitely remember, like, I remember being in like seventh grade and just being like this is an exciting thought to think about dudes. And then of course I'm going to hell. But
That must like, that's got to cause a lot of confusion in some ways. But I think even straight people that grow up in religious homes go through that. Like, all your sexual thoughts are bad, and that makes you a bad person. And
yeah. And for me, I went through this like I was never confused about what I was attracted to. I hear people say, oh, I never figured it out till later. I never figured out that it was okay. I knew what I wanted and was interested in, but the things that I questioned were like, well, maybe these are thoughts that everybody has and just don't talk about. Maybe everybody is on some spectrum where there is some attraction, or maybe this is part of being sexual, is like just getting attracted to the idea of sex, whether it's with a guy or a gal or
mm,
whatever. And so that was the part that was confusing to me. But yeah, I think you're right. Like, regardless of whether it was about gay or heterosexual or anything, sex wasn't talked about. And if I heard people talking about sexuality or what happens in their bedroom behind closed doors, or even what they're interested in, that was always considered crass, taboo. We don't go there. That's not cool. It's so I never did, even till after I came out at 40, I wouldn't even talk to people about stuff. Like, a question would come up at work or someone would make a comment, even the most like subtle thing, and I would leave the break room because I'm like, I'm not having this conversation. And also, I was very afraid of like getting pulled into an HR. A lot of times I worked around a lot of women. I was like, I don't want to be the dude that's now like,
right.
the conversation goes a certain way and everyone's fine with it, and you make one comment or someone later changes their mind about liking you or whatever. So I'd been in enough management training just to know to walk away, keep your mouth shut, and don't get involved if people are joking in conversations.
Well, I notice even when you and I are pretty open, but you're way more reserved about talking about actual details than I am.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because it's just like it's funny because I've come a long way. Obviously, you don't get on stage and do stand up and joke about things that we joke about.
Right.
Still keep those same policies, and the people that used to work with me would be shocked if they heard my mouth on stage, because it's like, him.
Right.
So
Oh. Okay, so in regards to what we were just talking about, so you grew up knowing that you were attracted to guys. Uh, did you like date women like uh, ever,
I
like as a cover up, or did you just kind of like date nobody?
no, it's funny. I always felt like I needed to have a girlfriend. Like, as soon as I got to high school, and I don't know if that was everybody or if that was just me. Like, I felt like that's what you do. You're supposed to have a partner.
Right.
And so, I dated a couple gals, like, dated as far as middle school goes, where you say
Right.
you're one gal. This is kind of funny. I was going to go on a date with this one gal, and she didn't stand me up, but she like called last minute and changed her, like said she couldn't go or couldn't get there. And she didn't go to my school, but I knew her um from a different, just from friends groups and stuff. And I at the last minute she had called and left a message on the machine, but I had already arranged to go to this thing, so I didn't want to tell my parents or sister, whoever was going to drop me off, that, oh, they canceled. So I still went to this movie by myself. And ironically, I saw them in the last year or so. We ended up going to the same high school and like being in some activities together, but not really being in the same friend groups. I saw her in the last year or two, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're a lesbian. That's kind of funny. I mean, not funny about her, but funny about both of us, right? That it's like maybe she knew sooner. I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. Did you have other than the Soloflex guy? Did you have any celebrity crushes?
Well, this was before we knew he was a freak, but Tom Cruise.
Oh,
Um, and if you picture Alec Baldwin like in the Hunt for Red October years, um, that's the thing. It's funny because to talk about people who were from the late 80s, early 90s, back in those days, and now you mention them, and it's like, oh God, like
right.
them.
That's
but
okay. I
but
get it.
yeah, which is
Today.
funny because I rewatched Top Gun before I went to watch the new one, and I was in middle school or whatever when that show came out, and then all of a sudden it's like, dude, he's like the age of my son right now. Like it's not the same view a few years later.
Do you remember like any mainstream movie that had like and this doesn't even have to be when you were a kid, but just as early as you can think of, a mainstream movie that had like a sex scene or a love scene that really kind of did it for you?
Oh my God. Um, I don't know.
Probably harder for a gay person.
Yeah, well, there were scenes that were like very tempting or teasing. You watch like any of those, like not to go back to the Top Gun thing, but like the whole, volleyball on the beach, or
Right.
like in the shower wearing their underwear, or like in the locker room and they're getting the news or whatever. Like there's a lot of things where it's like, oh damn. Um, or I remember watching scenes where a guy's like taking the lead with a woman, passionately or whatever, and you're like, I wouldn't mind being her.
Right.
uh there was a scene in Single White Female that's a very um intense uh sex scene that like has good cinematography, and then all of a sudden it's like someone gets killed. It's like, oh, wait, way to build you up and just leave you. I'm like, just talk about feeling guilty already. You're like, oh, sign from God.
Well, I'm gonna ask you a question I already know the answer to. Do you watch porn?
I watch documentaries.
Yeah. What's your favorite go-to category of documentary that you're willing to admit to?
Oh my God, that's funny. Oh my God. I don't know if you can see that I'm blushing over here. I don't know.
Your
If
face
I were
does
gonna watch,
better.
I don't know. I like, oh my God. I just like when there's some sort of thing at play, like I always like the idea of when something is unexpected. Like I've always had this fantasy of like, the boss taking control, or like, and I realized recently, I think in my therapy, that it was like, oh, if you're gay and in the closet, it's taboo to be gay. But if someone's taking advantage of you, then you're not actually the bad guy. Someone else, you can be the victim. You can be like, I didn't. Um, so anyway, yeah. Office scenes are fun.
Okay. What's your definition of amazing sex?
Sex where someone doesn't leave right away. I don't know. To me, it's really about having a really good connection. Like having that chemistry, which is why I kind of got out of being in the hookup scene, where it's like, it doesn't do it for me if we're just like scratching an itch. It really has to be meaningful. in you know, a little deeper way.
Right.
But
My God. How's your body image?
I don't usually view myself favorably. Like even today, I put on this sweater, and it was tight last year, and it was harder. Like I think I told you before the show, I had to roll it on like a condom. Like it was harder. And so I go to the coffee shop this morning, and right away I'm telling people, they're like, "Oh, nice sweater," and I'm giving them all the reasons why I shouldn't be wearing it because it's too small. Uh, but yeah, I'm pretty hard on myself in a lot of ways, which is something I'm working on.
Right. It's like how good can the sex be if you're worried about yourself and what you look like? I think that limits the freedom, you know.
Right. One of the things that I realized not too long ago, I had this realization, is that I don't actually have to think I'm attractive for someone else to be attracted to me. Like, because I'm not attracted to somebody with a handlebar mustache or, you know, that looks like me. I'm attracted to other guys, but they're not attracted to someone who looks like them. They're attracted to someone who looks like me. And so it doesn't have to be that you have to think you're a 10. You just have to also know that you're not horrific and you're not ugly. It's like, well, I'm a 10 to somebody. I just
Mhm.
got to find that somebody. And hopefully, you know, it lines up where they're a 10 to me.
There we go. Do you have any sexual regrets?
Oh yeah, I have some. In a way, I really try not to live with regrets, because if I hadn't have experienced those disappointments, then I wouldn't know not to revisit them or to stay in that space. So it's not something I stay in a lot. You know, one of the things, like when I look at coming out not until I was 40, you know, the big regret that I have with that is that I wasn't honest from the beginning about who I was. So I couldn't build a life of honesty from the beginning. But if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have the pain and the suffering and the things that help me help others through that now, or that help me, you know, my whole business is built on having people be authentic. If I wasn't if I was just didn't know the difference from the beginning, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. So, and I wouldn't have three amazing kids that came from a marriage that, even though it wasn't the healthiest, I love those kids, you know. So it's like,
Right.
it's regret's a funny dance, because it's like, sure, if I was going to lay this out, that's it, there's a lot of things I wouldn't do in the paths I've taken in life, but at the same time, I'm not going to stay in that space.
Okay, I ask a lot of people this. Um, have you ever had sex with somebody just to make them go home?
No, I have not.
Just me then.
I love your joke about, I think you, well, you have a joke about like the little nickel, but it's a little different, I guess. But um, I
Oh,
have thought about that, because I have had some times where it's been like, let's get it over with, but not necessarily, um, okay, it's time for you to go.
right. Um, do you have anything on your sexual bucket list?
Um, no, I mean, I think the only thing left is really long lasting sexual experiences, like with someone where, you know, that you really care to turn into a relationship.
I got it. Tell us your Instagram.
My Instagram is at awkward career.
Okay. This is going to come out like right around Christmas. Hence the guard. Do you have anything?
Diary of an ex, ho ho ho.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have anything to promote?
You know, the thing that I would that is not sexual, but when I'm not, you know, being totally inappropriate as a comedian, or talking with Cheri about all this stuff, I am a motivational speaker, and in January I am actually for the first time going to be teaching other people how to tell their story on stage, and it's really cool. If you're in the Tacoma area, you can, at the end of the class, you can get on stage and tell you know, anywhere around 7 minute talk with the message you want to give to the world. And we're going to take 6 weeks before that, helping you develop and practice that message. I'm calling it the Own Your Awkward Talks. And you can take the course virtually, but the delivery event is in person. So I have 2 people that are actually taking the course virtually and then flying in for the event. And I've got a couple spaces left. I think I'll still have a couple when this comes out. So love to have a couple more people join us. It's going to be a lot of fun.
People can get details on your website.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you can find me. There's every other Instagram post that I've been posting lately has it, or on my Facebook, which is also at Awkward Career. There's details, links, way to register, for videos with frequently asked questions, and it's going to be a blast. So I look forward to doing it. Yeah.
Sounds like it. So the last thing we're going to do here is I am going to ask you to tell me a story about sex that's entertaining in some way. At your judgment, you go ahead. I'll sit back and go ahead and tell me about it.
Oh my gosh. So I got to tell you, I hear some of the craziest stuff, or I have heard some of the craziest stuff on dating apps. And I'm not saying I'll never be on a dating app again, because I've learned to admit that just because I move away from something for a part of my life doesn't mean I'll never do it again. But right now I'm not on there. But I've seen a lot of stuff, just even in what people have talked about. And there's some creepy people out there, but I am always curious enough about where it's going to go that I will, like, I don't want to say I'm a tease, but maybe kind of, because like I want to like explore, and just like when a scammer calls, and I will lead them on enough because I know what they're doing. But I'm like, well, I'm curious how this actually works, or how far you take this, or what you're actually going to ask for. And there was this one dude, and I told this story to someone, and they're like, oh, that's so and so. And I'm just like, oh God. But this one dude I was talking to online, and he kept saying weirder and weirder stuff that he wanted and was willing to pay for. And I was in this really dark space, honestly, in the worst part of my divorce, where I'm just going, I have to make a decision right now on what I'm willing to do for money. Not like I'm not going to go sell myself on the street, but it's like, if it's, I'm just going, oh my God, this is weird. But he was like, I want to be a cash slave to somebody and have you show me your empty wallet and then I give you money. Like, it wasn't even like that weird. Like, it was like weird to me. But then, and he always wanted to see like pictures of what shoes, like he kept asking for pictures of what shoes I was wearing. And I'm like, well, I don't care. I can send you a picture of my shoes, whatever.
Right.
And then he goes into he like really wanted to be like bullied and like abused, not like abused, but just like dominated.
Right.
And he says, well, can you come over to my apartment? It's a secure building. I'll tell you how to get in. And I just want you to come in and like take control. I'm like, I'm not going to do this, but tell me more. And then he says, and if you can bring a weapon. I'm like, oh, so I'm supposed to go into a building that's secured with a weapon. And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable with that. And it just kept getting weirder and weirder. Like, he wanted me to pretend like I was breaking into his building with a weapon. I'm like, this is like a way to get shot, first of all, and arrested, and if not killed. And then he's like, and I'd love to see you, take a crap on a plate so I can eat it. I'm just going, okay, no, like, this is like, I'm gonna puke even thinking about that, let alone being in the same room. I'm not, like, smells are so bad. Like, as soon as things start to smell bad, I'm out. I'm just like if you fart during sex, it's over. Like, and I know I know I've done it. And I'm just going, dude, I cannot handle that. But at the same time, I had the conversation with him through all these things, because I'm going, this is weird. How much weirder is it going to get? That's weird. I'm like, how can this guy have all these things? And it just goes to show, number one, that there's a thing for everybody. Somebody's attracted to everything out there. Like, I'll see guys on their, go ahead.
It seems unusual to me. Usually, in my experience, usually who's someone who has those kind of ideas is usually hyper focused on one. Like, right. If it's feet, it's feet, and if it's the wallet thing, it's the wallet. But for him to have so many different things,
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
And that's the thing. And whoever it was that I mentioned this guy to, or this story to, I said, yeah, this guy wanted me to do whatever. And they're like, oh, that's so and so. He lives wherever. And they said he's whatever his job is, he has like a really successful job, like a doctor or lawyer. Like he does have money. And I thought, how weird. I'm not getting into that, but that's funny. So yeah.
mm.
And now I'm wondering, because that was early on when I first came out. And now that I actually know people, I actually had forgotten about that story till just now, and I'm going, I wonder who that guy is, because I may have met him over the last few, just
Right.
being out on town, you know?
I mean, you show up at a doctor's appointment not knowing that he's the.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're like, oh, why are you so interested in my shoes? Why do you need a stool sample?
Every time I come in.
Yeah, it's like, yeah,
Yeah, I haven't even met you yet. No, so
right.
all right. Well, that was fun. Very fun. That was a great story. I want to see a picture of this guy, but
I never saw a picture. I never saw a face pic.
oh, there was no face
Yeah, so I
there.
don't even know what he looks like.
Kind of figured. All right. Well, thank you, Andy. You know I love you. I'm always happy to spend time with you.
Thank you. Love
And
you too.
yeah, happy holidays.
You too. Merry Christmas.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thanks. Bye.